What's up everyone, my name's Cameron and today this is going to be my first video or solo video for the Someone's PC YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be covering yellow hybrids. And pretty much every list that I've seen, that's placed well or, posted online has been playing the purple Digitama plus rookies. While that version is very strong, I kind of found that I really like this yellow base that I haven't really seen many people talk about. I think it really makes the deck a little more aggressive, which is very effective in this meta, I think, where yellow control-based builds are typically based off of, having that high counts of removal and getting rid of opposing, threats. And in this format where a lot of decks are hybrid based and a ton of tamers on the board, there's not many ways to efficiently remove those tamers. And so I've found certain decks can kind of grind you out, even blue hybrids can kind of just play down a bunch of hybrids or a bunch of tamers and then kind of close you out by doing a bunch of multiple hybrid plays and things like that. So I think being more aggressive kind of stops quite a few decks from kind of getting into their late game plays against you, which is very nice. So starting off, I think the big thing, Cupimon, one of my favorite Digitamas, very good if you have 5 or more security. When you swing, you can draw 1. So a really nice way to kind of get the deck going and draw. While Demimera does the same thing for the purple base, it's the discard one. It just doesn't really feel good in this deck, in my opinion. So just drawing 1 without that discard is very nice. And then if your Digimon happens to survive for whatever reason, you can potentially keep swinging. And then the one of Upamon, also a good way to kind of get an extra draw in the later game when you're at 3 or fewer security. And with 9 yellow rookies in this deck, you kind of want to have as many Digitama as possible. Just for the late game, if you have to present possibly lethal, just because you're with that 5th egg or what have you. Going into the rookies, playing 4 Bushi Agumon, 2 Cutemon, which both. So 6 Digi rookies at the 3K DP mark, which is very nice. Obviously, you'll survive against any of the security checks that are tamers, but there's actually quite a few rookies right now that are at the 2K DP mark, whether that be Bokomon, Strabimon, any of the memory blockers, Flamemon, Dorumon, just pretty much there's just so many rookies that 2K DP or less where you can survive. And then if you do survive, your opponent pretty much either has to swing into it and kind of get rid of the rookie, and if they don't, you're just going to keep swinging with it, keep drawing with Cupimon, which there's a decent chance that there is, because there's just so many decks based off of tamers right now. Maybe they just don't have access to a threat to get rid of your rookie, so that's really nice. The Salamons, obviously, the recovery really nice in the late game with Salamon, Jet Sylphie, and Serafimon. You can recover up to 3 security in the late game for only the cost of 6, which is very efficient. Make it hard for your opponent to kind of close you out there. And then Bokomon, obviously just a very strong card. This format can easily become a +1. Just find you a hybrid, find you a tamer, and get that engine rolling. And with the rookies here, I've kind of tried to limit as many to have as little rookies that are just going to sit there on the board and not swing, like Bokomons, Cutemons, and kind of anything else. I do want to swing with them right away just to get that aggression going, but also because I feel like there's quite a few decks right now that can either punish rookies that are just sitting on the board or easily remove them. So things like green hybrids can, tap it and then, pierce with the JP, and then maybe even strip a security with the Ancient Beetlemon. Blue can kind of stun the rookie there, and then they'll just get a ton of memory throughout the rest of the game with Sora Joe. And then purple, able to get rid of the rookies either with something like a Deathclaw, a King Kakumon. And then blue, I believe, has, I think it's the Aldomon, I think it's called, the red hybrid, the level 5 red hybrid that can kind of pop 3K DP or less. So just a lot of ways for the opponent to get rid of your rookies. So I just don't want that many that are just going to sit around and not do much other than swing. And then 4 of Kazemon, 4 of Zephyrmon, 4 of Jet Sylphie. Kind of just want to max out on all the hybrids, obviously. And then I think another thing that QPmon helps with is finding that Jet Sylphimon, where this deck is so reliant on the Jet Sylphy, I think, to kind of get into those bigger plays, where a lot of other decks, can operate relatively well without finding their level 5. Blue, Korikaku, and Kumamon can put in a lot of work. I believe it's the Beetlemon and Metal Kabuterimon for green. Even the Leomon for purple. Like, they all have effects that are really good that kind of affect the board state potentially right there on that turn. Whereas Zephyrmon, not that proactive, more of a defensive card. It's a solid card for sure, but you really want to find that Jet Sylphy, which that's where the extra draw kind of really helps out, in my opinion. And then 2 of Rise Greymon just to have some more level 5s. And then obviously the effect, kind of playing a Yellow Tamer from hand for free, really good for tempo. And then you don't always get especially with this version of the deck, you're not really going to have 3 or more Yellow Tamers on board. But if you do, obviously the security attack +1, if it comes up, pretty nice. Going into the Megas, Seraphimon. I think a lot of people know about at this point the recovery +1, very strong. If you're at 3 more security attack +1, only 10k DP, but with a lot of these hybrid based decks and not having many megas in the not a lot of decks having megas in the deck, so good chance Seraphimon survives. And then if you ever do get a swing off with Seraphimon, you probably got 1 or 2 swings off with the rookies. And so you're kind of looking at your opponent pretty quickly being down to maybe 1 or 2 security left in the game. And, you have a lot of different ways that you can kind of close out from there. The Mastemon has been very great. I've always liked Mastemon and Control Yellow. It's a really nice way to close out the game, especially with Ibushi Agumon at a 4 cost. It's not actually that bad, especially when you play 4 of Kari. So, you can easily lower the cost of Mastemon so you don't pass over turn when you use it. And then, like I said, with Seraphi and the rookies, get your opponent down to 1-2 security left, and then Maste, kind of one of those pretty easy ways to kind of clean up and finish out the game. Susano, also a very strong card. A little bit harder to get into than Mastemon, obviously, because you need 7 memory. So you're going to need something like some TK Karis or Blindings to kind of get into Susano, but very nice in the mirror match where, especially if the game goes on longer, you're going to want to recycle all your resources, your hybrid resources. And then going into the options, I'm playing 4 Schwarz, which I think is very important to it's a very good card at kind of swinging tempo, wiping your opponent's board, and running a 4 of just kind of maximizes the odds that you'll find one in your security, which is very good, obviously. And then not playing any other option removal. I'll kind of get into that a little bit later, but playing 2 of Blinding Ray, not playing the Reinforced Memory Boost. I'm not really liking the Reinforced Memory Boost just because I feel like it's a lot of memory to pass over for your opponent, and then that's typically like your only play that you're doing during the turn, which is, obviously it's a strong card, but I think especially in this aggressive deck, you kind of want to have access to more plays. Blinding Ray, kind of getting that instant +2 memory is really nice, where you can kind of use it to close out the game with like an extra hybrid swing or Mastemon and what have you. And then going into the Tamers, 4 of Kari. I think it's one of the best cards in the game right now. Very good at slowing down the opponent. I've had several situations where you can kind of get 4 Kari out, and then once you get 4 Kari out, it just, your opponent can't really make that many plays during their turn. And then obviously combos very well with Blinding Ray, just giving you like a ton of memory to use during your turn to kind of close out the game. 3 TKs. I'm not really liking 4. I just have found that 4 makes it so there's like a very high chance that there's 1 TK in your security in the late game, maybe when you have like 2-ish, 3-ish security left. And I've just found there's been several times where I don't have a yellow card in security, like a Kari, Schwarz, Boko, or Sasano, and then I'm just ripping out a security and not recovering, which is just helping my opponent close me out. And then 4 of Zoe, obviously, is good with TK, just kind of finding your pieces in the early game to kind of get the engine going. And then the TK Karis, I think TK Kari, obviously a really good card, get +2 memory when your opponent has more security than you. And I think this variant of the deck makes TK Kari a little bit better. And the reasoning behind that is, obviously early game you want to play TK or Zoe. If you don't find that and you're able to put down maybe like a rookie and a TK Kari, now your opponent is kind of in this situation where they're like, okay, well, typically they want to swing into security really quickly to kind of take out Cupimon's effect, put you to 4 security so you're not getting those draws. But now they're in the situation where like, okay, well, if I swing, I'm just giving yellow hybrids more memory, which they may be able to kind of outvalue me kind of throughout the rest of the game, +2, +4, depending on how many you're able to get down. And then so what you'll do is you'll swing with a rookie, draw 1 off the Cupid, then your opponent may feel inclined to swing as well, put you down to 4, and kind of, okay, now, and they'll stop, so we're both at 4, so we don't get the TK Kari ability, and then next time you bring out a rookie, you can kind of go up into Jet Sylphie, go back up to 5, swing, keep getting draws off the Cupimon. So Jet Sylphie and Serafi make it actually relatively easy to get value off of Cupid throughout the course of the game, even if your opponent is trying to swing into you. And then obviously the secondary effect of TK Kari, where you can swing with a yellow Digimon, you can tap the TK Kari to do -1K DP on it for the turn, which stacks, easy way to get rid of rookies and things like that. And this variant, like, you don't need to go up into a hybrids and swing to activate it. Now you can just bring the rookie out, swing with it, maybe get rid of like a pesky memory blocker, but you're then able to get into your blinding ray play or what have you. So I really like TK Kari even more in this variant of the deck. Some other cards that I've been kind of messing around with in this deck are Starmons. I think Starmons, while the 1K DP kind of sucks in the security because pretty much everything will survive against it if it swings into it, the extra kind of DP reduction, really nice to get rid of all these pesky rookies that are running around, Boko, the memory blockers, the Digivolution cost reduction blockers, and all of that. So just kind of like an extra way to kind of get rid of different things, or you can even potentially stack it with the TK Kari to kind of get rid of maybe some champion level stuff, which is pretty nice. I think also Gazimon is a decent card. While it's a purple Digimon and you can't play it on top of the Cupies or Upa or anything like that, because you're not playing that purple base anymore, the only outs to being able to play Schwarz is you need Kari on board, and having Gazimon obviously gives you another out to being able to play Schwarz, obviously a very strong card. And then having a memory blocker and Cupon, the Digivolution reduction cost blocker, just having both is very strong right now. Obviously a big reason why one of the reasons why blue is very strong, because they have access to both. So something that's pretty nice to be able to have access to. And then going into, I think a second Mastemon could be pretty nice, and the reason behind that is because, like I said, Mastemon is really nice to close out games versus decks. It's been kind of very strong for me, but because you're so aggressive, there is a lot less time, just like a lower chance that you're going to draw into it before you're trying to close out the game, where if you're playing a control variant, a slower pace variant, you'll see more of your deck and then be able to find it. So just having that second Mastemon, very nice to see it before you kind of get into that mid game when you're still at maybe half deck and you want to see it. And then some other cards you can play, those the Fly Bullet or Wyvern's Breath, which I'm currently not playing in the main deck. I would definitely be playing them. If side decks do stick around, I would be playing those in the side deck, just because I don't really find those cards being effective in a majority of matchups. There's definitely some where it's good, like red hybrids or green hybrids, where they're trying to get into these megas, and you kind of easily, you can potentially kind of cheese them and flip it out of security and get rid of it, get rid of their big megas. But I've just found that kind of against most matchups, just when you get them in hand, it doesn't really feel good. Kind of paying 7 or 8 memory to get rid of one threat doesn't feel great against hybrids, because they're just going to play multiple tamers down, or now they can just play multiple hybrids to kind of close you out. If side decks do go away, maybe fitting in 1 or 2 wyverns or something like that, but still kind of keeping it at low counts just to lower the odds of having it in a hand. And then I think the last card I've been kind of messing around with is that 4 TK Kari. Like I said, I think this variant of the deck just makes TK Kari better. So getting a 4th one down, really able to get like 2 to 3 down by the early to mid game, and then it really kind of snowballs either through the memory gain or the DP reduction, which is really nice. And then going into the matchups. So obviously the first matchup, blue hybrid, which I think is just like the best deck right now through results and through popularity. I think it's a deck that you're going to have to be really kind of wary of going into these Ultimate Cup events and maybe any of your locals or anything else like that. But I think this variant of the deck over the purple base variant has a slightly better matchup into blue, just because I've just found that the early aggression can kind of catch them off guard. They're not really ready they haven't put down a bunch of like Sword Joes or what have you, so they can't always deal with the early aggression, because they do need to find multiple cards to stun things, or they do need those Tommies. And then if you're able to kind of get rid of the thing that the one Tommy they have, if they go Korikaku swing stun and you're able to get rid of that Korikaku, like they can typically have struggles trying to stun you after that. So I do like that. And then obviously the Mastemon, very nice to close out against blue, because they may stun your Jet Sylphie, and they're like, okay, I'm safe maybe at this situation in the game because the Jet Sylphie's stunned or your board is stunned, and then you can bring out a rookie from raising, swing, and then go into Mastemon, and they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting potentially that many swings coming out, and you kind of just catch them off guard and steal some games that way. So I still think it's roughly 50-50, maybe a little bit better than 50-50. That's just how strong blue is right now, but I do think that is, a pretty, it is a little bit better than the purple variant, where I've seen a lot of blue hybrid variants kind of able to, because the purple variant is just a little bit slower in what it's trying to do, and they're not getting those swings in with the rookies and as effectively, because they're playing only like 4 to 6 rookies maybe. They're not playing the Mastemon, so kind of blue has a little bit more time to find its pieces, and then once they get going, it's really hard to stop them. So obviously that's a pretty good matchup to have. Then we're going into Cherubimon, kind of the same thing. Cherubi really trying to get into their late game, where once they do get those multiple Cherubis out, multiple Tamers out, it's really hard for yellow to kind of handle Cherubi, and they kind of get outvalued and just outpaced once you get to that late game. And so I really think this extra aggression in the early game makes it so you can kind of close them out before they get into those big combos, which is really nice. If they're playing Karis, sometimes whoever gets Karis down first is pretty important. So, but even then, I've found situations where I'm able to Blinding Ray, tap 4 Karis, get into the Mastemon, do the usual Bushi Agumon play and close them out before they're really able to get going. Still a 50-50. I think it's a little better than 50-50 just based off of playing it a few times. But I do think if you're kind of playing a slower yellow hybrid variant, you can easily just get absolutely demolished. So obviously I think that's also a better mashup as well. Green and red hybrids. I think both they both have like different threats, but I do think it's kind of the same, a little bit of the same matchup where they're getting into these big megas. They're going to be taking multiple checks with the megas, and we don't have the wyverns or the flybolt or any kind of big removal like that to get rid of the megas. The only way to kind of get rid of them is to really time your Zoes and your Zephyrmons and either hope you draw into them and then time them well, and hopefully that they like crash into like a Jet Sylphie, a Mastic, either your level 5s or your level 6s, or your Susano, because you give them like an extra, I believe it's 6k DP, so that's a decent way to get rid of the ancient beetles or ancient Greymon or whatever. So you do need to get a little bit lucky in those matchups. It is slightly unfavored because you're not playing that extra removal, but I found that green, especially green, they don't have as many hybrids, so sometimes they kind of get, or they can't get like a great start. They kind of have a slower start, or there's not many ways for them to find the ancient Beetlemon, so they can't do, they can make some plays, but maybe not their big play without finding their ancient beetle. So that extra aggression can kind of help really kind of close out the game before they're able to find those big pieces. Kind of the same thing with red. Maybe, it's a little bit easier for them to kind of get into their big plays, but extra aggression, sometimes they stumble a bit and you're able to kind of steal games. And then with the yellow hybrids, the purple variant, obviously I don't expect a mirror match with the yellow yellow base variant. The purple variant, it's kind of an interesting matchup because both sides have some things going for them. So we have the Cupimon, we have the early aggression to kind of apply pressure. We do have the Mastiamon, which is really nice to close out the game, and so you can kind of apply that pressure. But the one thing is you have to be careful in that if you apply too much pressure, or if your opponent gets down like some TK Kari's early turn, they can kind of really snowball that and apply, kind of outvalue you throughout the rest of the game because of the TK Kari's. So it really depends on what their start is. Sometimes if they kind of put 1 or 2 TK Kari's down in the early game, you may not want to go in aggressive and kind of want to grind them out. You also have the Salamons, which they don't. So a little bit extra recovery maybe in that late game. So it's kind of an interesting matchup really now, where I didn't really like the purple base mirror. This mirror, I don't want to say that it's terribly favored. Just I do think you have some nice plays that they don't have against you. But like I said, if they have those TK Kari's, it can be scary, and they can potentially snowball the game, which can get out of hand. So you really have to kind of base what you're doing off of like what they're playing and kind of getting a sense for what kind of hand they have, or if maybe you can sense that they have like not a great hand, and you can kind of see they're not making that many plays, then maybe you kind of take that aggressive approach. But yeah. And then some other decks that I'm not sure if we'll see as much in this kind of last month, just because of the new, I believe April 1st it was. Now we have the new limits on Eismon and Savior Huckmon. So I'm not sure how much we'll see of these last 3 decks, but Jessmon potentially I think is not a bad matchup at all anymore. Typically, yellow control decks struggled into Jessmon, but now with 4 Kari, with the Zoe and the Zephyrmon, making it kind of easy for Jessmon to potentially swing into something and get crashed into it and get deleted. Kari, especially in the late game, really able to limit the amount of things they can do. They maybe in Jessmon, really, there's not many ways for it to gain memory past like a seal or maybe a red memory boost or something like that. So Kari can really limit what they're able to do in the late game. Maybe they can only make 1 swing, and then you can kind of close them out, especially since you're being so aggressive. I've just found if they stumble even a little bit or just don't have the perfect stack right away, you can outpace them pretty easily. Lilith loop. It's not really much of a loop deck anymore, but it's a Lilith deck with a lot of combo potential plays. I still think it's pretty solid. I don't know how much we'll see of it without the Eismon. I don't really think Eismon affects it too much. It added like a little bit of extra aggression in the early game, but I still think it actually can play quite a few level 4s. It can still play the scatter mode and whatnot. But I've also found this is another deck where typically the yellow hybrid is kind of taking a slower approach, and then Lilith gets into their big combos and then just blows you out of the water. Where I found that being aggressive with the Serafi, with the Mass Days, rookies, all that, you can kind of, once again, similar to Jessamon, close them out before they're really able to get into those combo big plays. So that's also very nice for that. And then a deck that I think is pretty much dead now, most likely the purple turbo discard deck, but if it does stick around for whatever reason, I think you have a good matchup into that. They just have a really tough time into yellow hybrids, and then you have even more recovery with the Salamons, making it even harder for them to kind of close you out. So I do think some pretty solid matchups. I think the only like truly bad matchups are like, and I don't even know if they're like that bad, but they are slightly in favor, is the green and the red matchup. And so, maybe add some, if you feel like you're going to see a lot of that, maybe you add in the extra kind of like those options that we were talking about, Flybolt or most likely Wyvern's Breath, to maybe get rid of their big threats, right? But I do think this deck has a decent potential kind of heading into this last month and at the Ultimate Cups. So, kind of give it a try. Tell me what you think, and hopefully you guys like it. But until next time, peace.